Hey everyone, welcome to another session of A Day in the Life of a BA. I'm James, the President of IIBA Ireland, and I'll be your host today. At IIBA Ireland, our mission is to support professionals by sharing knowledge, common terminology, and practical insights into the work of business analysts across different industries or domains. And this series gives you the chance to hear directly from BA professionals about their typical day, like their processes, the tools and techniques they use, the challenges and successes they've encountered within their industry. And each month, we're inviting a different BA professional to share their personal journey, highlighting their approaches they take, the technologies they rely on, and real world examples from their own work. So, whether you're considering a career in business analysis, already working alongside different business analysts, or simply looking to deepen your understanding of the role, today's session is designed to give you that clarity, confidence, and a shared language for working effectively with business analysts. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Lalitha, a business analyst who works in the pharma supply chain domain. Lalitha will be walking us through her own day in the life of a BA and sharing practical insights from her experience. Please feel free to turn on your cameras, and throughout the session, don't hesitate to drop your questions into the Q&A tab or into the chat function, and we'll address them at the end. So without further ado, Lalitha, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, James, for having me in this series, wonderful series where we had multiple industries, and I'm happy to present about pharma and supply chain. And I hope everyone is fine, and we have around 10 participants, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, and I would like to know if anyone is new to pharma or if anyone is already working in pharma. It would just help me to see the pulse of the audience. So you can just drop that in the chat. People are still joining, I guess. Yep, that's good. Good to see you. New. I'm happy. I'm happy to see you because I was once in the same boat. So I'm happy to start the presentation then. Hopefully you all will learn something about the industry, something about BA role in pharma supply chain, and hope you'll take something valuable out of the session. So getting into start, I want to know, how are you feeling today? You can scan the QR code throughout the presentation. My goal of the session is to make the session as interactive as possible than just me presenting. So you can scan the QR code, and your first question obviously would be just how are you feeling today? But throughout the presentation, we will be getting to know about you or your opinions, and I'll be getting a chance to know your feelings about the session or about the pharma supply chain. So it's good to have you there. I know, tired, I know. Tuesdays, long days. Cold? Okay. In Ireland, it's rainy, not cold. Good to see you enthusiastic. Me too. I'm excited to meet a lot of people. Stressed. Oh, maybe we will not make our session stress, so you can interact throughout. You have Q&As, you can put it out in chats, and we will definitely go to your questions at the end. So feel free to drop your questions and concerns. So with this, I'm good to see the responses. With this, I'll just go with start the session. Oh, sorry. Just give me 1 second. Sorry, James. As said, the Slido is giving me a bit of trouble.
It's typical. It's always when you're trying to present.
No, I think it's because of the Slido that I'm not able to move to the next slide. Just give me 1 second. Come on. Oh, yeah. Right here. Cool. I think you all can see the next slide, which is not Slido one. asking about who I am, right? Perfect. So I wanted to give a little bit of intro about me because I was once a developer, a software developer, coding, and I worked on languages Java predominantly, and of course SQL, all the programming languages, database languages, and worked with Cognizant as IT consultant for banking and finance services. So it is also a regulatory environment, but quite different to pharma. So I worked in Cognizant for 5 years, and then I took a leap. I did a socio-cultural anthropology because I wanted to know more about humans, if I have to lead them and if I have to mentor them as BA even. So I took a leap there. I did socio-cultural anthropology. I brought that into films as well. And then I did my master's MBA, Masters of Business Administration from Trinity College, Dublin. And now, after all these academic journeys and my corporate journey with Cognizant, now I'm in Ireland, bringing all that experience. So probably you have seen in the prompt where I blend engineering and social sciences, right? So that is what I would be talking throughout from my experiences of both corporate as well as the social sciences element. So currently, I work with Alexion, which is a rare disease unit for acquired by AstraZeneca. So now we are part of AstraZeneca family, but we are specialized for rare disease unit. So you can see that Alexion is specifically focused for rare disease, which is hard to identify, diagnosis part. But I will be sitting under the team IT business partnering for global supply chain. So I work as IT business analyst, whereas my entire team work as IT business partner for global supply chain. So my role will give the scope. As I said, I'll be sitting under the IT business partner for entire global supply chain and strategy. I have the scope of working on projects from end to end across the markets. So I work with a couple of projects with US specific, couple of projects with the European Union and also Middle East. EMEA stands for that. Canada, Australia, Japan, and some of the international emerging markets like China and India. So this is the place where I would be sitting under because I want you to know the overview of which teams I would be working with. So from this, what business systems analyst for global supply chain, what this role meant to me when I said that I'll be working across the market is that I was able to constantly learn so much in my 9 months. I've joined this company just in February, and but the learning curve is so steep, and it is so fun. Honestly, I'm telling you, it is so fun because I am in the middle of technology and pharma, where the BA skills are making the work progress smooth, and you are interacting with the multiple teams and multiple stakeholders. That makes this role unique and also so exciting. So throughout this session, I would be covering, like, giving a bit of overview of what is pharma supply chain, who are the stakeholders usually you will be working with if you are interested for this role, and what are the key activities that I would be doing and how my day looks like, and some of the tools and techniques that I'm using, and what it is for anyone who is interested to look for these roles. So, okay, the sliders are missing. Cool. So to give an overview of pharma supply chain, when I say pharma, you all would have known pharmaceuticals have clinical trials. There are different mechanisms in pharma, but I don't want to bombard you with all the pharmaceutical knowledge and the life cycles with you. So that is the reason why I kind of narrowed it particularly to my specialization and my function, which is supply chain. If you could see here that there are other divisions like research and discovery, that's where they will try to develop new drugs and new ingredients, and clinical development where they make it into proper ingredient, proper tablet that we will be able to consume, and manufacturing and supply chain, that's where they make it and plan it for deliveries to the end mile, and with the launch and commercial, obviously making it into available for different markets at different regions. And then the last one would be post-market surveillance and patient support. Having throughout the support where if the pharma drug is showing any kind of symptoms, later side effects, or something which is not to be part of that, so it would be reported immediately to the pharma companies. This part I didn't know before. This is a new thing that I learned. Oh, it's interesting to know. So this sort of interesting elements will be there in pharma industry, which I found very exciting because I come from banking and finance, completely different. Although banking and finance, as I said, it is regulatory, pharma is also regulatory, but the both of the sort of regulations are a bit different. But your experience, if you had already in banking and finance, it will definitely be highly transferable because I'm leveraging sort of my banking and finance experience, particularly on audits and other sections. So now, if you see on the manufacturing and supply chain, there are kind of five buckets down: sourcing, manufacturing, distribution, delivery, patients. This supply chain, this is a simplified version to give the overview of what could be there in the supply chain, but it will be dependent on the company, dependent on the therapeutic area what we are working. As I said before, Alexion is focused on rare disease unit, so our therapeutic area is rare disease, but it could be different. It depends on the pharma company. There are really good pharma companies out there, so many, along with Alexion, AstraZeneca, Novo Nordisk, Novartis. There are so many different pharma companies. Everyone will have their own sort of supply chain. And when it comes to pharma global supply chain, and a drug or raw material could be coming from anywhere, and the medicine will be traveling across the world. I want that's the deep level of supply chain where it will be. But if we have to see the main elements, what anyone who is new to pharma supply chain has to know is that sourcing, where the key raw materials and everything the company is trying to procure, you will be able to interact with many vendors or many suppliers, I should call them. You will be able to work, depends on the project. And the second one is manufacturing. That's where your core drug is manufactured, tested, and also packaged. We see the tablet or the medicine that we see, it goes through a lot of layers of packaging, a lot of layers of processing and testing. Because the core ingredient when we say about pharma industry is patient safety is the main goal, right? Although we interact with multiple teams, multiple people, at the end, what you have in your mind is patient safety. How we can make the drug as safer as possible, as efficacy as possible, everything. So there will be a lot of layers of processing, testing, and packaging in manufacturing. So I work in Dublin, and I work in one of the manufacturing facility of Alexion, although I work in admin role. So that's the sort of layers what happens in the manufacturing division. And then is distribution. Once the product is ready for delivered, that's when you will be dealing with the industry, the business would be dealing with the distributors and then logistics. We know DHL company, we get our couriers. So pharma couriers, they'll transport the medicines over the air or the thing. So we will be dealing with the distributors, logistics. And then the final one more part is delivery. So that's where logistics also comes here. It depends on the supply chain specific to company. And also there would be some companies who would be dealing as agencies who would integrate hospitals, pharmacies, and clinics. So the medicine will be transported from the distribution to the delivery point. And then the end, it's not, although at the end, patient is always in the minds from the beginning to the end in anywhere in the pharma. That's what I have seen. And I really appreciate that, seeing that. So if you see that all the five layers, sourcing, manufacturing, distribution, delivery, and patients, we have multiple skills and systems being in place. You need a lot of people, you need a lot of systems to integrate all these processes. And also there will be a regulatory element in pharma for keeping the drug as safe as possible. It's a patient safety is at the highest goal. And then throughout from sourcing to the patients, you will be needing transport and logistics. So logistics will be included throughout from suppliers to patients. So this is the simplified pharma supply chain that I could give here. So I will be talking about my experience, or I would say so far in 9 months, who are the stakeholders that I worked with. So as I said in the overview of it, here I worked with manufacturing teams, I worked with distribution, I worked with supply planning, demand planning, customer operations, IT, finance, regulatory affairs, and quality. In the previous slide, we didn't touch a couple of elements, right? Which I have added here: quality, demand planning, customer operations, and supply plan. When we say uh, a product, once it is prepared, it will be taken to distribution. But before that, there is a lot of planning happens on how the market is viewing, what is the demand for the drug, because there will be always diagnostics based on the diagnosis. There are some companies like IQVIA where they run these clinical trials, where they run the CRO organizations. So based on the demand, we will be planning our supply, right? So those are the themes I also work with. And one more element we are touching here is quality. As I'm emphasizing again and again, kind of patient safety is at most important for any pharma company or any life sciences company or biopharma, if we use all the terms. So quality is at most important. Whatever the work is being done, be it IT or be it at the business side of supply chain, anywhere the quality is important. So the quality team is actively engaged throughout the projects, irrespective of where the project is started. Like if it is just an IT system, even then it has to go through kind of rigorous quality procedures if the project is related to patient safety. And these are all internal stakeholders, but there will also be an external stakeholders. That's where one more layer of complexity added with stakeholders is CMOs. That's an abbreviation for contract manufacturers. In my role in 9 months, I don't actively engage with my projects with CMOs because I predominantly work with supply chain. And as I said, it depends from company to company. I currently don't work with, but in other companies, you might work with the CMOs, which is contract manufacturer organizations. And external, one more is 3PLs. 3PL is the abbreviation for third party logistics, and then customers, wholesalers, hospitals, pharmacies, patients. And last one is suppliers and vendors, which I said you would be getting a raw material from supplier, but you also might be getting a product from vendor, which could be a SaaS application, a SaaS platform. So your supplier and vendor could be from anywhere, but you will be interacting with them depends on your project as well. So I kind of gave the overview of how the industry supply chain would look like and who are the stakeholders. Now I wanted to know, who do you think is the critical stakeholder in pharma supply chain? You can scan the QR and I would like to see your thoughts, or what from the interaction, what you felt is critical one. I want to check if the QR is working.
Yeah, it's working for me.
Okay. Cool. Patients, quality and regulatory, manufacturing. It's good. I'm happy to see the answer. Patients. Good, good. As I say, there is one option. It depends. I'm curious to say how many people would vote. It depends. Yeah. Good. I'm happy to see the response for patients. Although all are your critical stakeholders, there is no single stakeholder we say that they are the only person important, but I always happy to see the patients as your core person, irrespective of what the project is doing, because at the end you're working for the patients. So I'm happy to see the answer, but I wanted to say that your distribution and logistics could be your critical stakeholder if your project is for distribution, if the project is for distribution. And it depends on the project, your stakeholders would change, as we have seen earlier, but I'm happy to see the engagement on the session as well. Thank you. Cool. Someone has voted IT and finance. Yeah, I sit in IT. So I would always like to say that in IT, even though we say IT as one umbrella term for everything, there are multiple teams within IT. There are a couple of systems which are quite different. So the teams are different. So even sometimes, even if the project is IT project, you will be working with different teams in your IT. So they could be a stakeholder as well. So cool. Let's go to the next one. So as I gave the intro about how the supply chain would look like, who are the key stakeholders I would be working with, now I wanted to talk about what are the activities I generally do as part of my role, right? So as you know, I work as business analyst at the end. So you know the requirements gathering is one major important element of the job role. But there are also other elements, problem solving, which I'll be going deep into what comes under it, and testing support, which is a bit different. Like I'm not actively as a QA, I'm not working as a quality assurance person who would be writing everything. So talking about requirement analysis. So I would be facilitating workshops because I want you all to keep the stakeholders map, which I have shown before in your mind, because that will be helpful to understand when I say about projects, what I'm working with, who will be the stakeholders. So facilitating workshops to gather and clarify business requirements. So in pharma, as I said, if I'm delivering a project which says that the drug has to be delivered to the end consumer at a certain temperature degree, because pharma will have some regulation. Some products has to be maintained with a certain range of temperature. So if you imagine that project, there will be distribution team involved, there will be customer operations teams involved who will be dealing with the customers, there would be hospitals and pharmacies everywhere where the product will be sold and stored will be involved in this project. So you see that there will be multiple different teams involved in it. So facilitating workshops is one of the important activity that I perform as part of my role, because it clearly aligns the requirements across the teams and make the project go smoother. So that is why that's my first point, which is very important. And then as part of the project, we obviously analyze current processes and then mapping the workflows, because even though pharma is not IT, like it's not an Amazon, it's not a Google, but it's pharma is so advanced in leveraging the latest technologies. So the processes and the tools, they keep constantly updating it. They make the processes even better. So as the BA performs is analyzing the current processes and identifying the gaps of what could be made better, and then suggesting improvements and helping for driving the process improvements. That is one of the key activity I work. And obviously the last one is translating requirements into functional specifications. So I'll be working with IT teams. It could be a vendor team of SaaS platform, or it could be an internal team who would be building out an application for this scenario where I said we have to monitor the temperature, or we have to deliver the product within a certain range of temperature. All these requirements we will be clearly translating into functional. And if in pharma, we would be using, depends on the project again, both either waterfall as well as agile methodology. It's not like we are like completely agile or completely waterfall. No, it depends on the project. It depends on the regulatory procedures. The methodology is appropriately used. So having an understanding of both would be of obviously a great advantage. So, and then problem solving. There will be systems where you will be acting as system owner, or you would be acting as monitoring the systems. So then you will be obviously taking part of identifying the data discrepancies, or identifying the issues, incidents sort of it, and you will be identifying the or analyzing the root cause of the incidents, and then informing the same to the different teams who are involved or who are using the system. Or and the last one is, I think you're able to see. Hope it's not cropping, but it's cropping for me. Yeah, the last one is testing support. When I said testing support, I won't be doing as like a quality assurance testing person, but I would be supporting UAT testing with the business persons, with the business people, with business teams. In pharma, when I say business, you can imagine that there's supply chain, because my role is specifically for a global supply chain. So for me, the business is global supply chain because I'm sitting in IT. And the one more activity which I absolutely love, but which is underrated, is training business on new features and processes. When we implement a new feature and when we implement a new process, giving a training and bit of overview of what's happened, although they were involved from the beginning, it helps them to absorb everything at once the project is done with a sort of training. That is one more activity which I absolutely love and do it at regular times. So those are the sort of activities that I perform as part of my role. But if anyone is so much keen and interested to knowing what exactly just the first day would look like, I start with coffee. Obviously, my first half will be with more meetings, and I would be taking care of incidents. If there is any system which is showing up an incident, we would be raising out, sending this to appropriate teams after identifying the root cause and involving the teams and communicating that there is an incident and please keep in mind, and the teams are being working on it. So sort of that, even a simple mail informing everyone is very important. So that's what. And requirements gathering, as we have spoken before, stakeholder meetings, depends on project, depends on projects. Currently, I work multiple projects at once. I'm not working as like single project, because previously when I worked in Cognizant as BA, as an IT consulting wing, I used to work as for one project at once. But here I work multiple projects at once, which I absolutely love. And obviously process mapping, because I do it so that the teams are ready for it, and monitoring some of the KPIs which we have set target. The second half is interesting because we all know that as BA, we would be doing a lot of documentations. Yes, I keep it to the second half because I'm a bit of night person. So I need that to be fully awake and to do the documentation. So second half would be predominantly doing the documentations and performing any internal controls or creating the solution design workshops. it when I said solution design workshops, it would be again involving multiple teams together sometimes. So you can just club stakeholder meetings and solution design workshops is almost similar. But what I wanted to tell from my experience is my day won't exactly look like this. That's the best part of business analyst, or that's the best part what I wanted out of a business analyst role, is that my day should not be the same exactly from day to day. So this is what I get, because as I said in the beginning, I will be working with multiple markets, US, Canada, multiple projects, right? So there is a time zone difference. So sometimes my core work would start from afternoon, accommodating to the US time zone. But sometimes it could be morning if I'm working or having meetings, stakeholder meetings with Japan team. So it sort of different depends on the project, what I am working and what is in the current radar. That is why it exactly won't look as it is, but predominantly these are the activities which should be done morning half and another half. And what are the tools and the techniques that I would be using? You all might have known, I assume if you're all here, you would be knowing about Babok Guide, and you would have seen all the tools and the techniques that could be leveraged by a BA in the roles, right? So I don't want to go deep into it because Babok Guide is very good. I refer to it. I even now refer it. It's not because although I use it, but there will be always something that you could leverage and which you are missing out sometimes. So it always helps to keep brushing and continuous learning. Even in the previous slide, I said continuous learning. No matter where we are, irrespective of industry, irrespective of role, I believe that we all have to continuously learn. That's when we bring the new skills to the table. So I do take courses. Usually, I keep it for Fridays where I'm learning about what's happening in the latest technologies. Because with Python, you could count the cells, microscopic cells. So that sort of technology that you could leverage in pharma. So all this knowledge, outside knowledge, what's happening in the industry, what's happening with the technologies that could be leveraged, will help you to even perform your role better. That's what I believe. So predominantly the common business analysis techniques that I use is obviously requirements elicitation and BPMN 2.0, or I would say process mapping. Both I use it, but predominantly so far I'm using BPMN and stakeholder mapping, obviously RASI, to create accountability and clearly delineating, because as I work with multiple teams, that is actually very good one. And prototyping, although we see prototyping in different ways, the one where I'm working is involved working with technical teams. Like I don't design prototype by myself here because I'm working in larger groups with multiple IT teams and multiple stakeholders. So we have I'll be working with the IT teams where we develop the prototype and then give it to the stakeholders for them to see what is the features that we would be developing, how the project would look like. And conference pilots, that's the best I love. So once we are creating this minimum viable product that we could show it, that's when you involve all the stakeholders. When I say all the stakeholders, it involves external as well. For suppose if I'm working on a project with the logistics, they have to be involved in the beginning to say, to let them know what's happening, what they have to be absorbing through the project at the end. So conference pilots are the interesting ones where I meet all of them and we all go through it and we'll make sure that everything and everyone is aligned. That's one of the technique that I use. It's actually pilots, I make it conference pilot. And open-ended interviews is one of the technique which I absolutely love. It's because I come from an anthropology background where it's the principle what I ingrained is that you always go with open-ended questions because that's where you'll try to understand the stakeholders' meaning. So if they say that a stakeholder or a business person is coming and saying like they want this feature, we generally say, ask why you want it, what is the importance, what is the priority, what do you expect. But from my social sciences background, I always go for this open-ended interview sort of questions because from there I try to understand the importance. They will be able to explain more with this more in this format. So I'm kind of inclined and I always incorporate that open-ended interviews in all my requirements gathering meetings. And the last one is RAID log, which is like risks assessment and issues. So having that template is always helpful for me because, as I said, it's again working on highly regulatory environment, keeping quality and safety as an important element. So the RAID log actually helps to track throughout the project. And as someone who started new to this industry, it is very helpful because sometimes we really don't understand, see the thing as an issue because we do. At least that's what happened to me as I come from completely IT background where I felt like, oh, that's fine, that's not an issue. But when it comes to regulator, when it comes to pharma, I feel like, no, that is an issue that has to be documented very thoroughly. So that's the first misconception or my unawareness of how strongly we have to document. That's what I realized, and that was very handy for me in all my projects. And this is the part where I want all of you to have a look. It's not that you have to master or be the SME of these tools, what I'm showing in the right side, but an awareness of what the tool would look like, or what the tool would add value to the function, add value to the supply chain function, or other things that will be of great help. In pharma, the common ERP that we use is SAP system. So that is your core ERP functionality. If you have any knowledge of it, it is absolutely great. I could see someone is making a little bit of art. That's fine. I love art. I appreciate that. But let's keep it for the end. So, as I said, the SAP is the core function. If you have any awareness, or if you have minimum skill set how the SAP system works, how your core ERP works, that would be of great advantage. Because as I said, it is core ERP functions. Sometimes most of your work in life sciences or pharma would involve, as a BA, is integrating systems. So you would be working as an IT link for systems integration. That will be one of the elements. That is why having a bit of knowledge on SAP is definitely a great advantage. But it's not like you have to be an SME of it. And TraceLink is one of the tool which I recently learned. That's why I had added it. But it's not, again, it's the same thing again. You don't have to be master of it. Serialization, we all would have seen QR code in our products, right? QR code whenever we get deliveries of it. Serialization is something like that for pharma, but it is using 2D matrix sort of different techniques to track the drug, even in the manufacturing, when it is moving from layers to layer, from warehouse to warehouse, they know what product is moving. And when they club all the small individual medicines packets we see into the big shipments, they know in the big shipment how many small individual packets are there. So in layman terms, like me, I would see it like you can literally scan the big package which is having 1,000 medicines in it. You can know all the 1,000 medicines which are in it. That's to ensure drug safety, that's to ensure patient safety, and the product quality is good till the end of the delivery. So that is the serialization one. It's interesting. It's a very niche field. So if someone is interested into that, you can explore. uh, that is a niche field, so it will be developing, and you might see a lot of opportunities who requires bit of experience or knowledge about how the serialization works. And again, documentation is very important in pharma. So Viva Vault is one of the system that they use for making sure the documents and everything is transparent, communicated, and stored properly. And OMP is one of the supply planning tool. As I gave the bit of introduction before, once the drug is manufactured, it once it to make it delivered, how they plan it, they will use the demand, and they will plan, like, for suppose for Dublin, we need sort of 10 medicines, and for Europe, they need 100 medicines. So they plan accordingly in this some tools, which OMP is one of the tool, Kinax is one another tool which are out there. So you can learn them. They're pretty much easy to know what it delivers. What are the elements the supply planning tool is incorporating? How would it help the business? As a business analyst, that awareness of what the tool does, what the system does, and how the system helps the business, or how the system can be made better, all this knowledge, even though you didn't work on it, is really helpful. So if someone wants to move into pharma, I would have encouraged them to go and explore what does OMP does, what it is for. So how so this basic knowledge, if you're going with for any job interviews, or even if you are starting a role, it would definitely help to make your job even more quicker and easier. And obviously the business intelligence tools, I use Power BI and Smartsheet. Uh, On the element of business intelligence tools, there is a lot of things that we see outside in the world is that people expect SMEs, but you don't have to be SME, but definitely you should know how to use it because Power BI and this business intelligence tools are your core tool that you would be using when you're communicating with stakeholders at times. Snowflake, SQL, you all know data. I don't actively work on it, but I definitely use because I come from technical background. That's my advantage. So that's not a big brainer for me. So for me, it was easy, but it depends. And obviously, ChatGPT. Oh, with ChatGPT, BA lives in a way it became easier. I felt from my experience. So I can talk through it later. I can talk through it later in Q&A if someone wants to know how much we use it. But definitely it is a great tool in addition for our role and obviously for tracking Zira. So I think I might have more, but I want to cover quickly what are the common challenges that I find is, as I said, I work from banking and finance and pharma. Both are regulatory. You know how regulatory environment works. But even within pharma, there are regulations different to US and Europe. That complexity you can learn with continuous learning, with understanding that market varies, and you should be able to identify for which market the project is for. So this sort of elements, the first challenge, obviously, but you can learn continuously. And if you meet people from regulatory affairs, they would be able to give a very good introduction, very good overview of it. That's what I did, and it helped me. And stakeholder alignment would be a challenge for this role because, as I said, you'll be working with multiple stakeholders, but definitely it can be easily done or it can be well done with strong communication and facilitating the discussions. But the funnily, which I didn't expect as common challenge, is the abbreviations. Oh, there are a lot of abbreviations pharma has, and in my first 1 month I couldn't really understand so so there will be too many at once when you start the role to absorb because I come from non-pharma background so for me it's very different. But the tip is ask without hesitation. People will be happy to, at least that's what I found in Alexion, that people are very people centric, patient centric company, so they help. So I asked, and chat gpt is a great help for this. So you would be able to narrow it down. You would be able to understand within company, it's for pharma. So it's easier one, but there are too many that I couldn't absorb. That's the challenge which I found. And I have to stress the importance of documentation, which you guys have already know that documentation is important part as part of BA role that we perform. Coming to pharma, sometimes you feel like you are heavily inclined to the documentation. Yes. Sometimes you feel like you are doing multiple documentations which are clubbed together. Yeah. But the tip for it is like time management with clear targets, this documentation when because most of the documents are interrelated when it comes to pharma. That's what I have observed. It is same for multiple industries, but here it is way dependent because we are making sure everything is going through quality checks and everything is thorough and we are not impacting any patient outcome at the end. So that's the goal of it. That's what I keep in mind and I'm okay with it. Yeah, but sometimes, it's a little bit heavy. So for that, the tip is clear targets with time management. So I wanted to ask a little bit of question. They're like, what do you think is the most challenging aspect of this role? You have seen my day in this role. So from your understanding, I would like to know. Cool. I see that I didn't get people getting everyone on the same page. Yep, agree. I do know that getting everyone on the same page is but that's the most challenging and interesting part as well. I find it interesting because you are using your leadership skills and you are using your communication skills to engage everyone and putting it into the same page. That is definitely a challenge. That's why even I have marked it as common challenge. But that would be the most interesting part because I'm learning more about the industry and we are letting the teams come together. That's a skill we are bringing as a BA role to make the project go smoother or to make the product deliver safe. So changing regulatory environment is interesting. Yes, that is definitely one of the challenges that we encounter. But it's easily and possibly done when you keep learning about what's happening in the regulatory space, which we sometimes not focusing on. So I'm glad to see all of it. Time zones, although but it depends on individual personality, I would say, but it is manageable. Good to know that. So I'm happy to see your responses. Let me go to the next thing. So I have shown what I do. So what are the skills that define my role if I want to progress in this space, in the industry? If you are in my space and if you want to progress. James, I think I'm a bit of overtime, but I'll try to make it quicker. Sorry for that. So the three buckets of the skills that is needed as part of my role is business skills, technical skills, and people skills. When I say it's business skills, critical and strategic thinking, yeah, you have to add an element what it is not easily decipherable from the data. You have to add, you should be able to think critically, bringing out different insights and making sure that you are focused on execution and results. And the third one, as I said, is before knowledge of business and what supply chain does. Like participating in this sort of events, you are able to get some terminology that is of good help. And people skills, adaptability, wearing multiple hats, definitely. So that is one of the core important thing. As I said, I'll be working with different stakeholders most of the time, or I would say all of the time. So you should be able to adapt to their words, their terminologies. That is a big thing. Good skill, I would say. Communication, transparency, because you are and at the end of influencer between different teams. And the most undermined skill, which I don't see for BAs, is leadership qualities that they bring. We kind of hear more of like BA facilities, but BA also leads. So we lead business sometimes with the new technologies because I sit in, as I said, I sit as IT business analyst. So I will lead them on driving technology adoption or making sure that they are able to understand the new features that we are developing. So all this is a leadership and mentoring skills that we bring to the table. And on the technical skills, IT business stakeholder management, which you can easily interpret there is like you are making sure that IT and business are aligned on the projects. And IT business solutioning is the interesting one. That's where my previous consulting experience is of good help for me. But it is nothing but you are able to add value to the business from your thing. So your consultant skills of what yes consultant skills is nothing but thinking, strategic thinking skills, and you are able to adapt to the changes. Those are the things as technical person you'd be able to bring to the table. These are the sort of skills that defines the IT business analyst role in pharma. And I'll quickly go through it. I think this is all you would know already is, but in that I cover only the important points which I would like to cover is in the stakeholder management, speak their language. That I find it very helpful because when I'm talking with the distribution team, asking them from their perspective and in their language, when we are talking with distribution team, they have a set of terminology. If we are talking with the 3PL, third party logistics, they have different, they'll be focused on delivering. So learning their terminology is of great help when you're trying to manage stakeholders. So most of you have the challenging aspect of find it stakeholder alignment is challenging. That's the one thing which I find it very helpful, and building relationships across all the functions. These are the two things I did as I started my job, and it was of great advantage. On coming to the process improvements, the most my favorite is keeping feedback loops. having the feedback loop open with all the stakeholders when we are implementing the project is of great improvement, because we will be able to deliver the project or make the processes even better with it. And for requirements, from my experience, I find one of the key thing which I didn't find before is that we have to keep the regulatory implications from the beginning. Keeping the audit in the mind is very important, because if you think like this project is not so critical project, but if it is critical, all the work you have done has to be redone again from the beginning. That's the one thing I didn't that's the one thing which is important when we are looking for pharma. You have to keep that in the mind. What are the regulatory implications of it? Because based on that, your process changes sometimes a bit dramatically. There are a lot of emerging trends which you all know, and I wanted to go through quickly how all this would help for your roles. Digital transformation is the so much buzzword you would be hearing. And under that, AI, machine learning, blockchain, IoT sensors, digital twins. Some of the companies have already started working on these projects. I already started working on a couple of these projects, and it varies from company to company. All these are emerging trends adopted by some companies and will be adopted in future by almost all or major companies. So if you have skills and interest in sort of these emerging trends, it would definitely help you to get into this industry. Digital twins for supply chain optimization, IoT sensors for cold chain monitoring, tracking the temperature, making sure the product is within the range of the temperature from the packaging to the delivery of the patient. So these are the elements which would be really helpful. And so you can learn more about this if you are interested in this. And all these elements, all these trends will help your role, but it's not replace you, because it will help you to move into your IT business partner leadership's role. It would help you to move into, if you want to, business side, supply chain strategy side. It would also help you to work on cross-functional opportunities. If you want to move into quality space where you want to be part of the quality, or if you, and all these emerging trends also give you the opportunity to be the global project management roles. So those are the emerging trends and technologies. With this, my last slide is that how you can take the leap. Learning the terminology, GMP, GXP, GDPs, understanding the basics, networking. You are part of this event, it means that IIBA is one of the good source. But if you want to look for specific networking opportunities in pharma, there are industry associations like ISP, PDA. I've been part of a couple of networking events for ISP Ireland. So go through it. They do regularly conduct workshops and they do regularly conduct conferences. It's a great source. And reading about some of the publications from Gartner and other sources. And I have attached just a couple of examples what I have taken, like logistics and supply chain, which was hosted by TU Dublin in 2025. So that will give you an understanding of what's happening in the industry and also get to network and to know. And there is one upcoming National Manufacturing and Supply Chain Conference and Exhibition, which will happen in Dublin from May 2026. All this would be of great start if you want to move into this industry. And with this, I'll leave the floor to question and answers.
Wow, that was amazing. Thanks so much, Lalitha, for taking the time to present and speak on your particular domain. I think it's really interesting, the supply chain life cycle that you showed at the start of your slides. Really like that you could see the breakdown of the different kind of phases and where you fit in as a BA. And I wasn't really aware of the regulation side for how that kind of tied in for pharma supply chain. So that was really interesting. And talking about stakeholder management skills and not to be too technical, but knowing enough technical knowledge to work with the different types of stakeholders. I think that was really key to get across. If anyone has any questions, please let me know in the Q&A or into the chat, and we can go through them. I don't see any questions come in yet. Or if anyone wants to unmute themselves, please feel free to do so. Okay, Masha has a question regarding conference pilots and how they're conducted.
Cool. Hi, Masha. Thanks for your question. Yeah. So I worked on a project where I had to work with third-party logistics, as I said, DHL, and there will be distribution team who is involved and also customer operations teams. So in that case, we did conference pilot in the same word. Conference is just Teams conference. It's not something so big, but I use the word because it's really bringing everyone into the team. And you are demoing each person will have a certain role and asking them to perform it on the conference so that everyone knows what the other team is doing. So then the process is smoother and aligns with no hiccups between the teams. That is how we make sure that all stakeholders are involved actively and aligned with the process. I hope that helps. No, that answers. Thank you. Did you ever had a stakeholder be trying to? Yep. That happens pretty much rarely, but I would say that I had an experience. It's it's not literally sabotaging, but it's coming with the not knowing the importance of delivering it quickly. It's not that they don't want to do the project, but they don't want to do it that seriously. So what happens is that then we have to, okay, I would say that what I did is I did a session with them saying that this is the importance sort of it, what is the importance and what is the timelines. We would be deviating timelines if you are not actively involved in this project. What happens from my observation is that it's not that stakeholders deliberately undermine, although we feel from our end like they are deliberately doing it, but pharma supply chain business is so complex, so dynamic that people will be actively dragged into multiple things. So it's that they don't do it deliberately, but they undermines not unconsciously or subconsciously. So you have to put the entire thing before them a couple of times. That's what I did. Yes, you're right. I find that they're being very busy and they're not able to prioritize. So what you have to do is you have to help them prioritize. That's the part of BA. You are facilitating them to prioritize the requirements. So that's how you are not letting them undermine the project.
I think as well, when they feel like they know where they fit in to the project and where they can help, then they're more inclined to want to help. But if they don't understand exactly where they can help, then they're like, oh, I don't want anything to do with this.
Yeah, that's true. That's where the facilitation skills that we bring would be of great help to the entire project. And I would say to the entire business. So as I started working in pharma, I stopped seeing things as project, which is very different from my consulting experience in Cognizant because that's a consulting company. So I used to see things as project, but from industry, I don't see it as project. I see its end is being delivered. You see the goal, you see the big picture of it. That's the fun. That's the beautiful part. I loved it. How fun. Josh has one more question, he or she. How fun is it to navigate different approaches, waterfall for regulated projects versus agile for software development? Oh, yeah. We know agile is relatively good, ease on us when we compare with waterfall. It's a bit tricky sometimes because, as I said, I'll be working on multiple projects. One project is waterfall, one project is agile. But honestly, it is not as complex as we feel at times because agile is in a way I find it a little bit smoother when I compare it with waterfall. The only thing that I make sure is that if it is a waterfall model, I make sure that I'm communicating everything clearly so nothing is getting sabotaged and the project is not delaying, because that is very important. I find with agile, the one tip what I make sure is that everyone is clearly communicated, what's happening, and the minimal viable product is being, or the demos and the features are being showed thoroughly and regularly to all the stakeholders. That's the approach I make sure in Agile. So in this way, I find it different tasks for me. It's not the different methodologies I'm working. So in that way, I find it a little bit funny. Yeah, it's actually good fun to deal complex things. That's what we are made for, right? Making complex things into easy as possible. Yes, Masha. I would say yes. In our teams, here what I find is prototyping would be done by the clear solution architects of the IT teams. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, we've reached the top of the hour, but thanks so much again, Lalitha, for taking the time to speak for IIBA Ireland at our A Day in the Life of a BA. And thanks so much for everyone for joining. Stay tuned for our next one that we'll be releasing soon on LinkedIn. It'll be A Day in the Life of a BA in banking, and we'll have Arvind Arka, who will be speaking for us. So stay tuned for that presentation and look forward to seeing you. Have a lovely day, evening, wherever you're joining from, and speak soon.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
Bye,
you
guys.
very much, everyone. Have a great time. I hope you'll learn something out of it. Bye-bye. Have a great evening.